call the Westbrook Planning Board meeting for tonight, Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021 at 7 p.m. in Westbrook Middle School Performing Arts Center at 471 Strawwater Street. I call this meeting to order. Before we start the meeting, tonight we have a quorum, so all of us are going to vote and ask questions this evening. Don't be shy. And for everyone here and at home, this meeting will be offered as a hybrid meeting, accommodating both in-person and remote participation. The link and phone number to join the meeting via Zoom is located on the Planning Board agenda, which can be found on the City of Westbrook website, westbrookmaine.com/agenda center. Where public comment is permitted, members of the public attending remotely will have the opportunity to provide remote testimony. If you wish to speak during the public hearing or public comment, use the raise hand function through Zoom or dial *9 on your phone. When instructed by the Planning Board Chair, you may respond. Tonight, we're going to have everything by roll call vote because this meeting is hybrid. Roll call, Madam Chair.
John Turcott.
Here.
Robin Tannenbaum.
Here.
Karen Axelson.
Here.
Jason Frazier.
Here.
Larry McWilliams.
Here.
Nancy Littercapes.
Here.
Ed Reedman.
So Ed, can you try that one again?
Here.
Rainey Daniel.
Present. There will be no minutes to be read or to be approved. New business. Becca, would you be good enough to read the item into record for us?
Yes, item 2021.27, conditional use for 396 Cumberland Street, Pastor Sam Luzingu. The applicant is requesting a conditional use within an existing building located at 396 Cumberland Street to be operated as a church facility. Tax map 043, lot 044, zone residential growth area 1, use church.
Thank you, Becca. The applicant presentation by Pastor Sam. Would you come to the microphone, please, Pastor? Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you please make a short presentation to us on the address of the building and what you would like to use it for?
The address of the building is 396 Cumberland Street in Westbrook. We want to use that for the church and help out the community.
Could you tell me how large your church is and where it's being held now?
Now we are on 1729 Congress Street in Poland, in Strawwater Village Church. We use same building.
And how large is your parish?
Now we are around 35.
Is there anything else that you'd like to present to us this evening?
We have only TBD on the future. We will see the need for the community. We're planning to have also food pantry in the future.
So you're going to also have a food pantry there?
Yes.
So it's going to be a church and a meeting room and offices and a food pantry?
Yes, offices and food pantry.
Okay. Thank you. Why don't you have a seat? If you have any questions, we'll call on you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah.
Staff comments?
The amount of site improvements that are needed for this particular project are fairly minimal. We have talked with the applicant about some restriping and reconfiguration of the parking lot area. Right now, there is a granite monument that sort of defines the driveway area that we're asking to have removed or relocated to widen the driveway width to make sure that that is sufficient so that if two cars are coming in and out at the same time, that there is adequate space. There is internal work that will be done as part of the project to create the sanctuary area and office space, but from just a true site area that's going to be changed, there's going to be very little that will be changed when they change this over to a church. The motion is on page 2 of the planning board packet, and the findings of fact, conditions, and conclusions are listed on pages 2 and 3 for the board's consideration this evening.
Thank you, Jen. Before I open the public hearing section, the in-person part, the microphone is to my right. Make sure you come down, you state your name, your address, and your comments and questions. And between Becker, Jen, and I, we will write the questions down. And at the end, we will ask all the questions to the pastor. I open the public hearing. I close the public hearing. Zoom presenters. If there's anyone in the Zoom who would like to participate, please raise your hand.
Does not appear we have anyone.
Thank you. There's no reason to ask you any questions, Pastor. There was none asked. And staff response, there's no reason for staff response. Board comments or board discussion? In person? Board members who would like to ask the first question? Yes, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pastor, I just have a quick question on parking. Is there going to be enough parking areas? I can see maybe in the picture on the screen, maybe enough for 20, 25 parking spaces. I don't know, are people going to be able to have access to get in and out? I see 2 services. One's expecting 25 people, another one's expecting 30. And approximately how many staff are on site, and is there going to be internal areas where people can park and congestion coming in and out? It's just a quick question there. I'm all for churches for sure. Not sure what kind of food pantry we're looking to do on what days. Curious to see what we could do for the community, and we definitely do a lot of support with the food industry, especially in Westbrook. Other than that, it's more the parking concern and making sure that there's enough room to support the people that are going to be coming. And I don't know how much you're planning to increase, to build your church to increase the presence of the people that are coming. So I don't know if you're planning on getting bigger and bigger, and if this is going to be a temporary location or if it's something that you're looking to be permanent. You said you were at the Stroudwater Church now. Is that the old Stroudwater Church right on the river at Congress Street? I was curious if that's where you're moving to or moving from. But I guess basically the parking issue and seeing how far you're looking to increase the traffic flow to come in and out, just to be able to handle the amount of people that might be coming to be served. So, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes.
It says on this planning board application, there's a daycare to be determined. So I'd like to hear more about that. Is that just when there's church, or is that for school before and after school, or what? So please share more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? The only one that I would ask is signage, so people in general can find you. And probably what times for the services. Anyone else? Seeing none. Anyone in the Zoom who's participating in the Zoom participation, would you please raise your hand if you have any comments or questions?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Pastor Sam, would you come down, please, so I can ask you the questions? The first question has to do with the parking lot. It was mentioned by Jen, who is from planning, that it was going to be restriped. How many parking spaces are you planning on having?
For now, we're planning to have 20 or 25 parking space, and we're gonna have 2 services, and one service could be held like 15 or 20 people, and the second service, depending, should be maybe 15 or 18.
And can you describe to us the food pantry and when that was going to be?
The food pantry, we're planning to have that on Thursday morning will be free for community, and we're gonna have a 1 truck coming in the morning, deliver food for the community for free.
Okay. And the entrance and exits, can you talk to us a little bit about what's going to happen there?
Yes, we already contact one company. They give us already the perform bill. As soon we get approval, they're gonna start working before we move in.
What are they going to remove?
They're gonna remove the grave, and they're gonna work on second entrance or exit.
Okay. Daycare, is that for during church services or during the weekday?
That will be during the weekdays. We'll be like preschool.
Like what?
Will be like if we have a member from the church, they're coming to Wednesday service, they're gonna leave the kids there. On Sunday, it will be the same thing.
Okay. So it's really during the church services, not before and after school.
Yes, but still TBD because we don't decide yet about that on application. I say TBD.
Okay. Jen?
So at this time, the approval would just be for the church function and offices. If pastor is successful in their site and wants to expand on it, the daycare piece would be another permit that he would come back for at a later date.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. And signage?
The signage we're gonna move. We're gonna move on.
Now, they would have to come back to you for the signage, right?
Correct.
Okay. And they don't have to come back to us? Okay. And your time of services on Sunday is when?
10 a.m. to 11:30, and then the second one will be on 2 p.m. to 3:30.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have I missed anything, Becker and Jen?
Have not, but just a general comment to try to please speak into the microphones because it's difficult for the members participating virtually to hear when we're not speaking into the microphones.
Okay. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
You may have a seat.
Yeah.
The motion, as Jen indicated earlier, is on page 2. I would like someone to move this forward, please. Nancy, please.
Mr. Chair, I motion to grant a conditional use permit for Pastor Samuel Lizingu for a church located at 396 Cumberland Street, tax map 043, lot 044, zone residential growth area 1, is approved with conditions and the following findings of fact, conclusions, and conditions, as stated on page 2 through 3 of the staff memo dated October 29th, 2021, are adopted in support of that approval.
Thank you, Nancy. I need a second. Second. Seconded by Robin. Any questions? Any comments? If not, Nancy, you have one? Nope. And if not, Madam Chair, could you have a roll call vote, please?
John Turcott,
Yes.
Robin Tannenbaum,
Yes.
Karen Axelson,
Yes.
Jason Frazier,
Yes.
Larry McWilliams,
Yes.
Nancy Littricapes,
Yes.
Ed Reedman,
Ed, could you say your vote again, please?
Yes. Yes.
Rainey Daniel.
Yes. Let the record show that it was unanimous. Thank you, Pastor. Welcome to Westbrook. The next item on the agenda, Becca, would you be good enough to read that into the record?
Yes, but first, is it okay if I make one other comment? Could I just make one other comment quickly?
Sure.
Just a general announcement for those participating remotely as attendees. We're only able to take comments verbally during the public hearing or public comment portion. We can't take written comments or questions throughout the application via the chat or the Q&A function. So if you could just be sure to raise your hand or use the *9 function if you're on your phone during the period of public comment, then we'll be able to bring you in then for those questions.
Thank you, Becca.
Yes. Next on the agenda is item 2021.20, subdivision for 500 Spring Street, Westbrook Housing Group, LLC. The applicant is requesting a 64-lot subdivision with 60 residential lots and 4 commercial lots along Spring Street, located at the former Twin Falls Golf Course. Tax map 008, lot 008B, zone residential growth area 1, shoreland overlay zone, limited residential, and resource protection.
Thank you, Becca. The applicant on this presentation is Sean Frank from Sebago Technics.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sean Frank. I'm an engineer with Sebago Technics. With me tonight, right behind me in the blue mask, is Gary Emmons of the Westbrook Housing Group, the applicant for the property. This is pretty much along with the sketch plan we presented to the board a few months ago. It's the redevelopment of the Twin Falls Golf Course, known as Twin Falls Landing Subdivision. What it proposes is 59 single-family lots and 4 commercial lots along Spring Street on the approximately 50-acre parcel. As we all have seen before, it's within the RGA1 zone with shoreline zoning along the river. Again, the overall plan probably hasn't changed a great deal. I think the bigger changes is that we have defined the stormwater management. It's basically going to be one large wet pond in the middle of the property. We had anticipated another BMP, another best management practice for stormwater along the back of the property off in Katy Way. And in fact, we didn't need that, so what we are proposing now is just a 30-foot common area to allow access from Katy Way to the abutting properties, which does have a number of trails on it. Number one, I did want to apologize. I did see from staff in terms of the plans and some of the line weights and those types of things, and I did look at the plans after we submitted them, and they could have certainly been more readable, and I certainly apologize for that. We have submitted to the Maine Department of Environmental Protection because we did have a site location permit. That had been our main focus, if you will, but at the same time wanted to make this subdivision application to the board and to staff to get the review comments, which we certainly appreciate from staff, and obviously to get it back in front of the board to make sure there aren't any further issues with you folks. The main thing I think we still have to finalize is the actual final package for recreational and open space. It's generally along the same lines we had been talking about when it was 36 lots, in terms of conveying the land on the other side of the Stroudwater, conveying a piece up in the southeasterly corner, if you will, about 7.5 acres. And we had a common area along the Stroudwater River. I think staff is asked that we actually convey that to the land trust, but we would like to kind of coordinate that with staff. We would like, our first thought is we'd like to maintain that as common open space, just so that we still have some control associated with that. But again, I did have a discussion with the city planner this morning, and certainly we'll kind of make that part of an overall package in terms of the open space and conservation area. As you may recall, it's all municipal water and sewer. We're proposing a new pump station, which would basically take the place of the existing one along Miles Lane, that will pick up and pump the sewage back. It will be designed and built to city specs. I think there was a lot of the comments in association with that, which again, certainly we will clean up and take care of. They also asked something about in terms of the location of the gang mailbox in the bus stop, to get that more on one of the commercial lots, and we can certainly address that as well. We have submitted the information as well to a geotechnical engineer, just to ask their review of the proposed cuts and fills we're looking at here, as requested by the city engineer. The HOA documents are being updated, and I think it's really just us, Mr. Chairman, at this point in time, going through the plan set and getting the details worked out through staff. But again, it's in the DEP now. Obviously, our intention would be is that once we have DEP approval, to be back in front of this board pretty much at the same time, asking for final review. Like I say, so the main point of this application was to start this review process, to obtain these comments from staff, and to represent it to the board to see if there were any further issues or concerns that we might want to be dealing with. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and certainly between Mr. Emmons and myself, certainly do our best to answer any questions the board has. Thank you very much.
Sean. Staff comments?
So Sean hit on the high points of the comments. We are at what we're calling sort of a preliminary level of the plan set. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to pull together all of the comments, whether it be from staff, the planning board, the public, so that the applicant can now move forward to a final application package with all those comments collectively. So at this point, I think the staff memo provides you with sort of our general feedback, and if there are any other comments that the planning board or the public would like to provide, this would be the time.
Thank you, Jen. I open this public hearing, the in-person portion. If you have a comment or a statement, please come to the microphone to my right and state your name, address, and what the comment is or what the question is. And between Becker, Jen, and I, we will compile the questions and ask them at the end. Who would like to be the first one? Let's move to the Zoom participation. Anyone in Zoom that will have a question or a comment, please raise your hand.
No comments.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Becca. In that case, I'll close the public hearing. Sean, you've been saved again. Board comments and discussion. Any questions from board members? Yes, Jason.
So you mentioned that you are hoping to maintain the green space along the river there. I picture it as, a trail, all natural. So I'm just kind of curious, what would there be to maintain, and what's kind of your vision of what it's going to be?
And there would still be the easement. It would just be the ownership is all we're talking about. You're showing that we have defined a common open space along that side of the river. We were proposing that the homeowners would own that with an easement to the to the Visumsket Land Regional Land Trust, so that the trail could be there. Absolutely understood the trail to be there to make that connection. Full in agreement with that, and again, certainly in terms of working with them to get access to the land on the other side of the river, as well as to make that connection, if you will, between Blue Spruce and the trails on the back. So that's all fine. You can see there's actually 7.5 acres to the rear of the site that we are conveying to the land trust, as well as approximately 11 acres on the other side of the river, which is being conveyed. We were just a little concerned, and again, we'll have some further discussion. A little concerned, obviously, from the homeowners along that side of the road. This is going to be, to a certain degree, their backyard. We were just concerned about having some type of control over that, so in case, and again, we don't want to think of worst case scenario, but all of a sudden, there's parties going on down along the trail, if you will, along the river, or that, that at least we had some type of control over that. To be able to kind of coordinate and kind of work with the land trust. So the easement's certainly there, the trail will certainly be there. We were just concerned in terms of having still some control over that, if you will, from the homeowner's standpoint, just to the fact that, the proximity of those homes to that particular trail.
So how wide would the easement be at the back of the parcel?
It's more of an area. I think it's about 3 acres, and it kind of allowed. It's basically within the tree line. If you can kind of see that tree line in the darker green. The idea being that the trail could be worked by the land trust to kind of work where it needed to go within the wooded area. So again, that easement is fine. That would all be an easement area associated with that. It was just the actual ownership of that open space. So again, we certainly didn't want to dictate to the land trust, where the trail could go. We didn't want to dictate to the land trust how the trail should be constructed. All we wanted to do was maintain some type of control of the ownership in case any type of problems arose. We just thought the homeowners at that point might be able to deal more effectively, if you will, with the land trust to be able to say, geez, we're having some issues down here. Can you work with us?
So I guess a question for staff. So with an easement, with that, they can't have permanent structures on it, but can they clear it? Or what control would the homeowners have on that trail or that open space?
I would defer to PRLT as far as what they would want to see that easement language to be, because I think, to your point, if we are looking at just trying to blaze a trail through existing growth, that they wouldn't be looking to have that understory all be removed as well. So we could talk to PRLT when we are crafting the language to make sure that we could even put on the plan that this isn't to be a cleared area, but only for the purposes of a trail through this area. So we can put language on it. We can put it on the plan as well, so that we can memorialize that and ensure that the intent of what happens out there actually happens.
And if I could just add a little bit to that, if you don't mind. Again, I'm working with the DEP on this. It's in the shoreline zone, so we have the 250-foot shoreline zone going off from the river. So their preference would be if that had never been disturbed, is that remained undisturbed. In this case, because it had been a golf course, maintained lawns and that type of thing, basically they were going to permit us to kind of maintain on these lots those existing lawn areas down to the tree line, but within the tree line itself, basically undisturbed, under the typical shoreline zoning regulations, that it remains undisturbed, except for, of course, what the land trust can do in terms of their trail construction. And again, when it comes to the trail construction, we understand they're the professionals on it. They know where they want it. They know how it all works, and we're going to certainly defer to them. But the anticipation would be is the tree line stays where it is, except with the trail working its way through that to make that connection.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, Jason? Super. Someone else on the board? Yes, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo the fact that I appreciate the single-family homes going in, and I understand it's a condo association. I have, with the open space in the center, when I was looking at the soil reviews and the soil surveys, right in that open space is mostly where the general wet area is anyway, and I know that's probably why you're planning on putting the pond in there. Is it going to be a pond?
It is going to be a pond. It'll be a wet pond at the end of the day.
Okay, because I saw it's open space, so I didn't know if it was going to be where people can have access. I see it's open space, and it's in the middle of the backyards of a lot of...
And they will have access to it, and I think it can be a nice amenity. I think it can be, you know, both parts of that. That certainly, it's a very functional wet pond from a treatment standpoint. So we're directing a lot of runoff to that wet pond. It's all coming up on the uphill side and then working its way through the pond and down through in accordance with Chapter 500 standards in terms of the treatment associated with it. But if you notice the topography of that too, a lot of those lots all around that pond actually fall off pretty good in topography, so we were thinking we could have a lot of walkout basements along that area, people with decks, if you will, looking out over the pond, and we certainly think that under that scenario, obviously we want them to maintain this pond anyway as a BMP, as a best management practice for stormwater management, but at the same time we think that with it being that prominent, if you will, between these homes, that they'll maintain it as well from an aesthetic standpoint.
Okay, great. I saw how that was, you know, when I looked around and everything else looked pretty firm, and I was, you know, pretty consistent on what it was on the conclusions. But then when I noticed that it was going to be a pond, because that was under the conclusions on Part 7 through that, just said it's not a good spot to be developed unless it needed to be permitted in a way to do something else with it. So I'm glad to see that you're using it as a pond in that area, just the way the topography fits. It looks like it's a good fit there.
And it does, from a drainage perspective, it actually did work out very well.
That's good. So one other quick comment, though. I saw in the bylaws, now I just, maybe not because I don't know bylaws, but it says that each residential person will have a vote, but the home or the landowner or the landlord or the developer has all 59 votes, or is it 59 votes plus the votes of the individual homeowners until this place gets built? So they would have a majority on control of what's going on?
Typically what it's set up for is that the developer has a certain amount of control associated with that association until such time as everything is constructed and conveyed and it all becomes part of an association, so that the association is actually formed and everything conveyed to them, because as of right now it's all owned by one person or, you know, one company. Basically, until that conveyance occurs, then basically the developer, if you will be the association to get started with, and obviously they try to maintain that control until a lot of the work is done, so that, you know, everyone understands what needs to be done and it is done.
All right, because I did see later into that after 30 units were sold, then they can elect at least a person to the board to the...
Absolutely. By the time the infrastructure's done, by the time, you know, everything's pretty, and we're petitioning the city to accept the roads, and I mean, we want to be forming the association at that point in time. What we don't want to have is, but we just want to make sure that work can all occur in accordance with the approved plans, you know, while it's still part of, you know, we still own it, if you will, if it's still ours and it's still done. Obviously, once everything's done and conveyed, then certainly the last thing that the developer wants to be is you know, part of the association. At that point in time, he definitely wants to be out.
Okay, thanks for settling that up. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else? Seeing none. To the Zoom participation. Anyone has questions or comments from the board?
Ed, do you have any comments right now? No comments right now.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, I do want to add one more bit of information, and it is for the subdivision of the land. That's why we are talking about all 63 lots here. But again, we understand that it doesn't include the development of the individual commercial lots. Those, in fact, would have to come back to this board for site plan approval on an individual lot basis. And we also understand that the only access to those 4 commercial lots have to occur from the interior road network and not from Spring Street. And I knew we had discussed this before, and I just want to make sure that we all still understood that.
Thank you, Sean. Applicant and staff response to these comments? Have I missed anything that was asked?
I don't believe so. I think you have it.
Okay. The motion is on page 6. I would like a motion made so we can move this forward. Nancy?
Mr. Chair, I motion that Planning Board continue the application for Westbrook Housing Group LLC to finalize site design and obtain all required state permits.
Thank you. I need a second, please.
I'll second it.
Okay. Larry, seconded. Motion made and seconded. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
John Turcott,
Yes.
Robin Tannenbaum, Karen Axelson,
Yes.
Jason Frazier,
Yes.
Larry McWilliams,
Yes.
Nancy Littlecapes,
Yes.
Ed Reedman,
Ed, one more time if you're there.
Yes.
Rainey Daniel.
Yes. Let the record show that it was unanimous. I need a motion to go into workshop, please.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by John. I need a second, please.
I second, Mr. Chair.
Seconded by Jason. Roll call vote, please.
John Turcott,
Yes.
Robin Tannenbaum,
Yes.
Karen Axelson,
Yes.
Jason Frazier,
Yes.
Larry McWilliams,
Yes.
Nancy Littlecapes,
Yes.
Ed Reedman,
One more time, Ed.
Yes.
Rainey Daniel.
Yes. Let the record show that it was unanimous. Becca, would you please read the next item to go onto our agenda, which is the workshop?
Yes, item 2021.28, subdivision for 313 Forest Street, Lansdowne Development Company, LLC. The applicant is proposing a duplex on a recently divided lot located at 313 Forest Street. This application requires subdivision review due to an additional residential unit that was added to the divided lot in 2020, resulting in the creation of 3 residential units within a 5-year period. Tax map 034, lots 128 and 128B, use dwelling 2-family.
Thank you, Becca. Before we open the public hearing, I just want to inform everyone that we received an email this afternoon, well, actually last night, addressed to Jenny and to Rebecca regarding the project on 313 Forest Street subdivision. And that'll be put into the records and noted that the email and who it was sent by. Presentation will be made by, Sean Frank.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, you have me twice tonight. Again, from the record, my name is Sean Frank. I'm a civil engineer with Sebago Technics. With me tonight, the second gentleman behind me, if you will, is Michael Mitten of Lansdowne Development. The applicant in this case, who has a purchase and sale to purchase a 7,500 square foot lot at 313 Forest Street. As staff stated, basically the lot at 221 Rochester Street had previously been a single-family home, had been converted into a duplex. The lot split, and the applicant is now proposing a duplex, and therefore the need for the subdivision review through this planning board. We did have a staff meeting regarding this application, and you saw the staff comments. We're certainly comfortable with all the things just based upon those comments. We specifically have eliminated we were proposing a full foundation. It's a slab on grade now at this point because of the fact that there is not a storm drain within Forest Street that we could connect an under-drain foundation drain to. The electric will be underground. We are working on the final grading plan associated with this. I did receive the email as well, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely correct. Typical of the last lot or the remaining piece of undeveloped land on the street is they filled all around it, and this is the low spot. But there is an outfall for this. Obviously, we'll be filling in that low spot, if you will, to create this home. Certainly, we will not be ponding water onto abutting property. I can guarantee you your staff will certainly make sure of that in terms of their review. The intent will certainly be is to pick that water up. This is kind of a hybrid site plan that we did in working on the response comments. As you can see, we kind of tightened up the driveway coming off from Forest Street. We're showing the existing driveway to 221 Rochester to be removed. That actually provides the drainage outfall, if you will, for this lot. That's actually the low spot, if you will. Everything is pitched towards the corner of Rochester and Forest where there's an existing catch basin. So there is outfall. We can get this water to drain. This is the low spot. It does pick up runoff from the abutting lots. But that runoff, like I said, we can get directed away. It starts going back up again along Rochester and certainly up along Forest as well. But it's not a far distance. So it's just a matter of getting that water over to that catch basin. The building design was a point of discussion with staff. The applicant has modified that design somewhat. Thank you, Becca. Basically, we had some small porches. He brought those porches forward to align with the garages so that we had this more unified facade, if you will. And hopefully to try to minimize the impact of just the garage doors themselves. And then he extended that roof line, if you will, along above the top of the garage doors to kind of, again, give it that more unified look. Becca, I don't know, could you just go to that quick aerial? And yeah, thank you, Becca. Just in terms of fitting in, you can see right to our left, there is the two-car garage. The facade of the existing building at 221 Rochester. We think this will be a nice addition, a nice fit to the neighborhood, if you will. It will provide, certainly needed housing. You can kind of see that low area, if you will. That's the area, obviously, we'll be filling. You can see the home on the left, the garage on the left certainly is above us, so that we can certainly push that drainage down towards, and again, the lower driveway on the right. That's the little bit of driveway that's going to be removed, at least a portion of that. Which will kind of allow that drainage to work its way down towards the catch basin in Rochester Street. So we're hopeful that you are comfortable with the updated building elevation we're proposing. We do think in this particular case, the size of the lot, the proximity to Forest Street, that access to Forest Street minimizes the amount of pavement, if you will, that we have to do to get in and out of here. We do appreciate that we just don't want these garages to be the one and only thing, so we have tried to meld that back into the elevation of the building. And we certainly are very confident, and especially in terms of working through staff, that we can make the grading work to make sure that there won't be any drainage ponding on other people's properties. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd conclude my presentation and certainly be happy to answer any questions that the board has. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Staff comments?
So the comments that you see before you were provided at the staff meeting. The application that you see for the plan has been revised based upon some of the staff comments. The one major issue that we will want to verify, as Sean alluded to, is the drainage, as it's also been stated in the abutters email, to make sure that we don't create a problem when we infill this lot, that we push drainage necessarily onto an adjacent lot. So we will be working on that as we move forward through this application process.
Thank you, Jen.
And if I could, just in terms of that site plan, Mr. Chairman, it says, again, I sent this and I should have looked at it, but the stairs that we're showing coming off to the front will actually come off to the side. okay, to kind of just help that part. And we're still showing a door coming out of the garage, and that door will be eliminated. So in fact, you know, we won't have the idea would be so that we could have a little table and chairs, if you will, on the porch, you know, up along Forest Street. So the door going to the garage will not be there, and the steps will be moved over to the side in proximity to the door going into the unit. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public comment section. Anyone that has a question, please come down to the microphone to my right. State your name and your address. Okay, anyone who's participating in the Zoom portion of the meeting, please press star 9 to raise your hand.
No comments.
I officially close this public comment section. Board comments and discussion. Anyone from the board? Yes, Jason.
Sean, I got a question about the the existing catch basin. How far away is it from this property?
It's right on the corner of Rochester Street and Forest, so I can't read that from here. Whatever the distance of that lot, just to your left there, Becca, that distance right there.
The tiny little print there.
Yeah. I can guarantee you I can't read it from here.
And
About 80 feet.
Just to your right, Becca, if you don't mind, it's going to be there it is, right there. I think it's still about 80 feet.
Yep,
Yeah.
81 feet.
Okay. And what's the depth of that?
Again, we'll be going to the rim, all right? So we're just going to be directing that runoff because it's a couple feet lower, if you will. So it's just going to be a matter of trying to get that water, if you will, to go across the back of the sidewalk and go down towards Rochester Street coming off from that lot.
Okay.
But it'll be surface runoff.
Surface.
Okay.
So, all right, thanks.
Anyone else? Anyone else on the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, John.
I just want to say that I like the adjustments to the kind of street face of the building. I like pulling the porches forward so they kind of reduce the look of a garage house from the street, if you will. You're looking more at a garage now. It'll look more like, you know, a residence. So I like that very much. And I actually like the reflect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, a board member on the Zoom portion, Ed, any comments?
None.
Thank you, Ed. Jen, any comments, or should we move on?
Staff has no further comments at this time. We will await the applicant to provide a final application, and we will move it on the next available meeting once we receive it.
What's your timeline, Sean?
I looked this, before I came here, my understanding is the next submission date is the 11th. So my anticipation would be we'd be resubmitting for the 11th for the meeting in December. No? Yes? No?
The 10th, the 11th will be a holiday. Yes, so if you come here, nobody will be here.
Like I said, Mr. Chairman, I was going to plan on submitting on the 10th.
That's exactly what I understood you saying. So you're planning on being here in December?
Yes, sir. We would like to do that.
That sounds very, very good. Good luck and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, folks.
Becca, will you be good enough to read the next item into our workshop?
Item 2021.29, Site Plan Subdivision for Methodist Road, Methodist Homes LLC. The applicant is proposing 10 units on a named private driveway located on the westerly side of Methodist Road, approximately 2,000 feet northerly of Timberland Drive and Cobb Farm Drive. tax map 014, lot 009, use dwelling 2-family.
Thank you, Becca. And the applicant making the presentation is Henry Hess from Sebago Technics.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
staff. As stated, my name is Henry Hess. I'm a landscape architect with Sebago Technics. With me tonight is Methodist Homes LLC, Mohammed El Taha, and Walid Momne, and his son Ryan. As stated, the applicant is proposing a 10 residential, bring it up here. Thank you. I need really obvious cues. Thank you. As stated, the applicant is proposing a 10 residential unit or a 5-building duplex development off of Methodist Road. Thank you, Becca. The site itself consists of a steep slope up from Methodist Road up to a large ridge line, and then flattens out along the top side of that ridge to the back, or I guess the north side of the property there. This plan is a little different than what's in your packet. We have been developing a little bit of engineering since that sketch plan. I do have a couple hard copies. If the board would like some, I can bring those up. If anybody would like to take them. So as stated, we are working through some of the engineering at this time, but really only through the road corridors and initial engineering. But the project is proposing the 10 units there on the rear of the ridge. As previously in your packet, they were proposed kind of on the lower side. Moving the road up the ridge will actually allow for a lot less cut within to the slope, potentially relieving any blasting that may occur due to the amount of ledge on site, as well as it will allow us to provide and preserve additional wetlands on site as well. We did receive some initial comments from staff at a previous meeting. We're actually working to resolve some of those comments at this time regarding the tax issue with the open space or tree growth area within the lot. We should have that resolved shortly. The project is moving forward right now to provide utility plans, grading plans, lighting plans, our photometrics, landscaping, as well as how the stormwater engineering will work in a full application to the town. So that'll be following this submission. The homes themselves, thank you, Becca, the duplex units themselves are consistent of about 1,800 to 1,900 square feet each. They are 2-story, 3-bed, 3-bath, and they will consist of vinyl siding. You'll see each unit there has the front porch and a garage adjacent, and then in the rear sides there, they have the decking off the back and a side access door from the garage. So as stated, we'll certainly be working through to provide a full application to the staff here and to the city, as well as for any permitting that will be required with MDEP for any wetland impacts on site. There will be some. We'll certainly work to mitigate as much as feasible to limit the impacts of wetland on site. At this time, we're anticipating a Tier 1 application with MDEP. So with any of the remaining comments, I certainly would like to hear from staff, and we're happy to answer any questions from staff as we move forward. I know there's a few comments on there.
Thank you, Henry. Staff comments? Jen?
In our staff meeting, we did provide the applicant with feedback regarding the project. We do have a driveway that will be created as part of this project, and they will feed the project for the 10 units. There is a possibility in the future that this project could have another phase 2, and that could come off of the dead end section that is being shown right here. This would be considered phase 1. I think at this time, I think that's all that we really need to bring to the board's attention outside of the comments we've listed, and we'll be looking forward to planning board's comments.
If I might add real quick, Mr. Chair, there is one typo on the plan that is up on the screen as well as in your new packet there. We will propose a hydrant within 800 feet of the existing hydrant on Methodist, not 850.
I'm going to open the public comment section. Anyone with a comment or question, please come to the microphone to my right. State your name, your address, and your comment or question.
Good evening. My name is Joel Hall. My address is lower right, 630 Methodist Road. It's changed a little bit since the Zoom thing, yeah? Looks like it's moved way out of my backyard, which is appreciated. So Mr. Hess, it looks like then that's not just going to be built right on the ridge up above my house. It's going back down.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, it's going back down into
Nope.
the dip.
You're here to speak to us tonight, not have a conversation, please. Okay? We will ask the questions at the end. I'll be more than glad to. Okay?
Forgive me,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. This is my first time.
That's all right.
The question that I have is regarding trail access there. The Methodist Road is a pretty fast, busy road. There's narrow shoulders, no sidewalks, and a lot of construction vehicles. Currently, myself, my wife, a lot of our neighbors head westwardly there to hike the trails, like down to Congdon School through the Westbrook City Forest. My question is regarding potential access to those trails after this. I understand the road to be a private road, so I was hoping to see that there might be some access to neighborhood people who are just looking to walk.
Awesome. Could you say your last name one more time, Joe, please?
Hall.
That's an easy one. Thank you. Someone else, please? I'm now going to move to the Zoom participants. Ed, have you any questions? Or
No,
anyone
thank
else?
you.
I'm sorry, Ed. What did you say?
No.
Is there anyone else who is participating in the Zoom portion that would like to have a comment?
Yes, we have a comment from Mr. Merrill Hapala.
Who is it?
You can ask him to.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Meadow Hutala. I live at 669 Methodist Road, which is directly across from the subdivision. And my biggest concern has to do with the access road. My concern is its exact placement in relation to my house, and specifically to my living room window. My concern there is if it happens to be directly across from that window, the headlights from the cars coming out of the access road will beam directly into my living room. And that's my biggest concern. My second concern has to do with stormwater runoff from the access road into my yard. And I'd like to know if any concessions have been made or any considerations in that area.
Could we get just to verify his address again?
Merrill, I had your address was 669 Methodist, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you for your input. Anyone else? I close the public comment section. Henry, one of the questions I heard asked was about the trail system, and because it's going to be a private road, and the statement was made, which is factual, that there are no sidewalks and the road is, for lack of a better word, antiquated. It's one of the oldest roads in Westbrook. is there going to be a way for them to be able to go to the city forest, which is down by the middle school in the community center?
At this time, we have heard that actually from a few abutters as well as the neighborhood meeting, and I believe that's something that the applicant would be willing to consider as they move forward with the design and through the design development of the project.
Okay. Make sure, Henry, that before you leave, you get the contact of Joel, and you make sure that he is able to attend, if he can, to any of the meetings that you hold, so he'll be more informed than I will be, and he'll be my expert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And access road.
The access road right now, it's located to be at one of the higher sides of the hill on Methodist to reduce the amount of fill. We can certainly look to shift it a little bit one way or another, but at this time, that is the best location for access off of Methodist Road, not only for elevations as well as site distance as well.
Okay. And how wide is the access road?
Right now, the road is proposed at 24 feet wide.
How much footage do you have in the front?
I'm sorry, how much frontage? It's about a 400-foot frontage.
And number two was the water flow.
Certainly, yeah, as water will be coming down that hill, the project will be meeting Chapter 500 standards and making sure that any water coming down is collected and treated. And certainly we'll make sure that no water escapes onto adjacent properties, and we'll certainly work with staff to make sure that that is the case.
Okay. And again, I have to affirm, make sure you see our secretary before you leave to get Merrill's address and contact, so you can also get him involved, so he'll be my second expert.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Oh, have I missed any question?
No, but I just did want to make a comment as it relayed to trail systems for the public that this parcel does not come close to the city forest parcel. So there's a significant distance to any sort of public trail systems in that vicinity on this side of Methodist Road.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions from the board, please? Yes. Give me a second. Karen, I should know that. Karen, you're on.
Thank you. On these, the new papers that you passed out this evening, it shows the west elevation and the south elevation have no basement, but the north and east will?
That's a great question. At this time, they're looking at an option to provide a basement if necessary, or if somebody is willing to have the basement, they're working on options with and without a basement at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Another board member? Yes, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that it is redesigned as far as what our packet was, and I didn't realize there would be a phase two, but as I'm looking where the circle was originally proposed, is that about as far as phase two is going to go? So we might be only looking at a few more, 4 or 5 more duplexes down the road. I look at the big parcel in the back. I don't know the topography or the elevation of that land. Just to be curious on how far phase two is going to go, if it's something that is even going to be proposed. But if it's just going to be as far as out as that circle, we're only looking at another 5 or so units. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, given that is correct. Given the size of the property, the net residential will only really allow about a maximum of 15 units. So phase two, when planned, will not be more than 5 units.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Another board member? Yes, Robin.
Okay, so that was one of my questions. How many more? I guess really what I wanted to say is I appreciate the attention to the massing here. As you heard from our previous comments, we don't love garages out front, and I know sometimes it's unavoidable, but I really appreciate the way the design kind of staggers the units in the duplex, and I think we've suggested that. I'm sorry, I'm looking at Jenny. We've suggested that to other applicants, and I think it's a good model to use. So it's just very it's much more sensitive, so thank you, and thank you for the sensitivity.
You're welcome. I'm sure the applicant's happy to hear that.
Another board member?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, John.
So now this is similar to something we once saw out on River Road. So you're really going to be up above the neighbors, so to speak. Yeah. So in terms of elevation, about how much higher are these proposed houses going to be above, for example, Mr. Hall's property down below?
That is a good question. At the moment, I believe they would be, Mr. Hall's down closer to that. 140. I got to do some quick math in my head. Hold on.
Sure.
I would say they'll probably be about 30 to 40 feet above at a maximum.
Okay.
There'll certainly be plenty of area and buffer in between his home, but yes, they'll certainly be above his home.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate too that how you've moved them even further away from the neighboring property than you originally proposed. So it looks good to me so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Yes, Nancy.
Yeah, just a quick comment on how much I like the unit design, particularly from the front. It's just a really attractive design, and the color that you offered to us here with the brown, black, and cream is just, it's an elegant look, and I like that coloring. So thank you.
Thank you.
We've hit it already. I think I have two. The first one is, since Methodist has traditionally been ledge, how much blasting are you going to have to do?
At this time, we do have about 10 feet to 14 feet of cut up the slope. Some of that will be ledge. We don't have an exact number at this time in the early phases, but we'll certainly be looking a lot more at that as we go through the process here. And we are anticipating some blasting with this project.
Okay, thank you. And the last question was the first thing that hit me. What's the percentage, or what is the driveway? What is the percentage of grade?
The percentage of grade coming up from Methodist Road proposed to start at about 2%, move to about 5%, and then increase to a maximum of 8 before shallowing out again to 6, and then 5 and 2. And then as you actually round to the second drive by the homes, that does not exceed 3.5%. And that, as you start to move from that intersection at this time, will go from being the cut to actually that second drive will be fill, majority fill.
Okay. Jen, do you by any chance know off record, and I don't think you will, but I'm just asking for the presidential view, what percentage is that grade?
I believe that is an 8% slope.
8%?
I believe so.
And yours maximum is going to be 6?
But we will not go above, we'll be maximizing the slope at 8%.
So an 8% slope is a public street standard. We don't have a slope, a maximum slope for driveways. So we have had instances where we've had steeper slope driveways for condo complexes. 8% is what we would have as a maximum for a public street.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions that I see. Ed, do you have any comments as a board member?
No comments.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Jen?
Mr. Chair,
No, sir.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
So, might be jumping the gun here, but mailboxes, will they be up on Methodist Road or at each duplex?
Yeah, at this time, we don't have a final location, but at this time, I believe that they'd be considered along the drive itself and not down along Methodist Road.
Okay. And is there potential for a sidewalk along the drive up
There-
to Methodist Road?
There is the potential for it with a 24-foot wide drive, yes.
Henry, I'm old. Did you say that there is a possibility to have a sidewalk going up the private driveway?
There is the potential. It is not planned at this time. It's a sidewalk that certainly would not be able to be ADA accessible, but it's certainly not planned at this time, but it is a potential.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, what's your timeline?
Well, we'd like to turn things around to you guys in a timely manner and hopefully get a submission to you guys in late November, which would put us probably back into late December or past the holidays there for a meeting.
Well, we're two fabulous ladies here. Have a dance card that fills up awfully fast. So if you want to move fast on this, you got to be quick, real quick. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and we'll see you next time. And certainly don't be afraid to contact Becca or Jen at any time. That's why they're there, and they're very, very popular. Don't be afraid to use them.
Thank you.
Becca, would you be good enough to read the next item into the workshop agenda?
Yes. Item 2021.30, Site Plan Subdivision, Stacy M. Symbol Apartments, Westbrook Development Corporation, which is Symbol Apartments LP and WORG LLC. The applicant is proposing a 3-story, 60-unit affordable senior housing development located on a plus or minus 4.32-acre condo lot with frontage on the proposed public street, Nicholas Lane, within the River Meadow residential development. Tax map 037, lot 001, and tax map 010, lot 002, use dwelling multiple family.
Thank you, Becca.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask permission to recuse myself from this discussion because my husband is part of the design team.
Okay. I need a motion, so Robin may recuse herself.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I need a second, please.
I
It's been
second.
moved by John, seconded by Nancy. Roll call vote, please.
Procedurally, John is not going to be able to vote on recusing himself, I believe. Is that correct?
No, it wasn't John, it was Robin.
Oh, sorry, Robin.
That's all right.
Sorry, Robin.
You're going to get a bonus because you were quick and you almost caught something.
Okay, John Turcott,
Yes.
Karen Axelson,
Yes.
Jason Frazier,
Yes.
Larry McWilliams,
Yes.
Nancy Litters Capes,
Yes.
Ed Reedman,
Yes.
Rainey Daniel.
Yes. And before we start, I need to inform everyone that I am on 2 of the Westbrook Housing Authority's board. They have several boards, and I'm on 2 of them. I don't receive any financial gains. It's a volunteer board. The presentations, well, they've got a real team. Caleb Barassa, you're on first. Chris LaRoche from Westbrook Housing is on second. Tyler Norod from Westbrook Housing is third, and Peter Burke is carrying the rear, and he's a landscaping architect, and he's fourth. Welcome back, Caleb.
Yes, good to be back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for the record, my name is Caleb Barassa. I'm a project engineer with Goral Palmer. With me tonight, Tyler Norod with Westbrook Development Corporation to speak, as well as Peter Burke, landscape architect for the project. And Chris LaRoche was named as well, although he'll remain in the back. I'm not planning to speak. So just to get into the project here, we had a couple others involved. Architects, Barry U. Dakin, the architect, wasn't able to make it tonight, but they're the project architect, as well as a few others. Yep.
We do have the architect via Zoom that we can bring into the meeting when you would like him.
Very good, thank you. And the project we're before you tonight with is the Stacey M. Symbol Apartments. It's a 60-unit affordable senior housing project, which is proposed in the River Meadow Subdivision, which is a current and separate application that's with the Planning Department currently. And so what I have before you, just go back to the aerial there, thank you. This is a aerial view of the overall River Meadow property here, and you have up in the top right corner coming down is Mayberry Road, and then across left to right on the screen is Lincoln Street. And this is the former site of the River Meadow Golf Course, which has been out of business here and closed for 5 or 6 years or so now. But what you're looking at is in red the approximate condo lot boundary for our project site here, which is on the former first hole green and then second hole tee box area for anybody that had previously played on the course there. And so you can go to the next slide. And then what we're showing here, just a plan view of a similar view from that aerial there. And this is a phasing plan taken from the overall River Meadow subdivision, which is under separate application again with WORG LLC, who is a co-applicant on this project as well. And proposed as part of phase one is Nicholas Lane. You can see somewhat on the top of the screen and reaches our lot boundary there to the top. And that'll be a public way that will provide public frontage or frontage on our lot there, and which will receive access from. And again, that's a separate application which our lot will be created from as part of phase one. And so as far as timing goes, we're in before you tonight with our workshop application, and we'll be looking to come back as soon as possible, recognizing we'll need DEP permits as well, which will also kind of dictate our timeline. And then additionally, we'll need to wait for final approval of the phase one of the overall River Meadow subdivision application before going for our final approval as well. Please go to the next slide. And here we are. This is our site layout, a little bit more zoomed in. You can see Nicholas Lane, that proposed public way as part of the overall subdivision to the top of the screen, and then our driveway access picking up in the gray hatching there. So our driveway will come down southerly into the site and then wrap around the east side of the building, where there's parking for 63 spaces there, and the main entrance to the building. And so this building is approximately 16,800 square feet in footprint, with a three levels of living there, and then some basement level space, which I'll let Tyler go into a little bit more on the programming side of things and what will be within the building there. And so we also have some other exterior space. You can see in green, that hatching there is just a reinforced turf section. That's a fire access lane, so that we have access for a fire apparatus on all sides of the building there. And then in addition, there's a couple of walkways that we have shown in the parking area that connect to the sidewalk on Nicholas Lane. And then to the west side, which is the left-hand side of the screen of the building there, you have some other space there that leads to some exterior patio space. such as a smoking area and then just another sheltered space for residents to gather there. Without a hatch, but coming from that same area I was just discussing, you have kind of a meandering trail that's just a proposed stone dust gravel trail that will go through and make its way to what is a stream on the west side, the left-hand side of the page there. And so this stream is a natural stream that comes down through the subdivision, makes its way to the Presumpscot River. And that more or less, that stream, the center line of that, forms the westerly and southerly boundary of our lot there. Go to the next slide. I'll save you a little bit on the black and white and try to make this a little brief, but this is the grading and drainage and erosion control plan. Biggest thing for us is just location-wise on this site and trying to limit the disturbance of the existing vegetation that is out there, and that's kind of a key a theme in our application here, which Peter will be able to discuss a little bit more on what he's proposing for landscaping here. But we've strategically placed the building and the parking area such that we'll be limiting the amount of disturbance and clearing that will occur to the perimeter of the site, which is made up of existing trees, some tall, large pine trees, and other vegetation as well along the stream. And so this stream, we're trying to maintain a 75-foot buffer as typically required through the state. And I do note there was a comment by staff that we were showing one of the tenant gathering areas within that. And so on our next submission to you folks, we'll make sure to adjust that accordingly. For stormwater management, we're trying to maintain and gather runoff generated on site in a similar fashion to the existing topography. I'll note the grade across the site goes from north to south, top of the page to the bottom of the page, and generally drains towards that stream that forms our westerly and southerly boundary. And so what we're proposing is within the parking area, we'll be collecting runoff and then sending that to a subsurface sand filter, which will then treat it through a filter section and then discharge to the stream. And then additionally, on the left-hand side, the west side of the building, we have a couple of biofilters, which are essentially just rain gardens. I think they serve a pretty good purpose, both landscape-wise and stormwater management-wise. And so those will serve the same purpose, filtering water down through and then discharging out towards the stream and then eventually the Presumpscot River. Next slide. And then here is our just a quick utility plan. All of our utilities coming from the Nicholas Lane, that public way, as I had previously mentioned, a lot of which will be, that'll all be constructed as part of the Phase 1 activity with the overall subdivision. And so we'll be simply connecting all of our utilities from the public way there and then redirecting and coming around to the south-hand side where most of our MEP and sprinkler room functions are. And with that, I believe on the next slide, we have the landscape plan. And so I'll turn that over to Peter Burke, who will be able to better represent what we're trying to do here with the existing vegetation and the proposed vegetation on site.
Good evening. I'm Peter Burke, landscape architect for the project. There are, I would say, two parts to this landscape plan, and Caleb touched on the recreational parts with the trails and the taking advantage of that stream. So I'll primarily talk about the plantings. And what the goal was here was to feel like the building is nestled into that site nicely. It's on three sides really surrounded by tall pine trees. And so what we wanted to do is on the exposed sides and on the faces of the building, screen it, define it, scale it down, and give it that extra something that vegetation can do. So we've used a lot of native trees as well as some flowering trees and shrubs. we have a really generous planting bed surrounding the north, east, and south sides. So we were really able to put substantial plants in there, especially on the entrance side. The beds are quite large, and we have no grass. It's all going to be trees and shrubs. And the island that you see in the parking lot is very wide, so the idea there is to really take advantage of that and plant large trees that will cast shade and provide scale to that open space there. As well as on the edges of the parking, we've really tried to fill that space with trees that ultimately, at maturity, will essentially hide the building for most of the year.
I'm sorry, Peter, could you speak a little bit louder into the microphone? They're having a hard time understanding.
Sorry.
Yep.
Whoop. Yeah, I can tell. Should I repeat any part of what I was just saying?
I think you can probably just pick it up from here.
Okay. Yeah, so to recap, we've been able to plant large shade and canopy trees to scale the building, provide shade, especially on the south where the parking lot is, and help to screen the building, not hide it, but screen it and define it. We've used American elm, disease-resistant American elm, throughout, pin oak, tulip trees, ginkgo, and a variety of other flowering native trees. Any questions on that? Okay, well, with that, I'll turn it over to Tyler. Thank you.
Tyler Norrod. I'm the Development Director for Westbrook Development Corporation. And Rebecca, if you wanted to go to the next slide, I think it shows some of your, some nice renderings of the building to try to give a sense of how this will feel once it's actually built. And we have our, as Rebecca noted, our architect on the Zoom call. He, at the last minute, wasn't able to join us, but is around to answer any questions should the board have it. But just to run you through it quickly, I think the renderings speak for themselves pretty well, but the landscape design right now doesn't coordinate perfectly. The trees are in different places, but it's the same sense. You're trying to do a lot of shade, a lot of green space that, when at maturity, will help bring the building into the rest of the site, make it look like it's been there forever. I do want to re-emphasize we are keeping that long row of mature pine trees on the northern edge of our site. We've intentionally designed the driveway. You'll see it misses it, and intentionally it drives around all of it. And even to the rear, which we didn't hear as many comments about in previous meetings, but we think are important, is to keep the mature trees back there as well. So that's why the parking is on the side of the building. You see it. That's why the driveway is there. We've intentionally tried to dodge anything that's mature and existing. At the same time, we're also trying to invite folks in. There's a little stone dust path that Peter and Caleb touched upon. There will be a bench or two looking over the brook at a moment where it's sort of peaceful and calm. We have our patio space out there. And we're also on that side of the building, we're trying to leave the meadow that's sort of organically formed since the golf course shut down and reinforce it with some more meadow mix flowers, things like that. And we'll let that grow naturally around the trail, mow along the trail line, mow along the driveway line, so it looks very clean and intentional. But back there will be a really nice respite from the rest of the development around it, where you can walk through this trail with flowering meadows around you. If you want to go to the next slide, Rebecca. And so this is just zoomed in. There's our main entrance there. That's where most of our residents are going to come in and out. There's a little drop-off zone. It also serves as emergency egress. You know, if there ever was an emergency, large trucks can fit and circulate through there. The elevator and community room are right off that main door. We'd see there being a lot of activity. There's a, which isn't shown in this rendering, there's a little retaining wall. It's not actually doing anything structural, but it's a place that people could sit. We'll end up putting a few benches out there so that if you're waiting for a ride on a nice day, the residents can come sit outside, enjoy the space, make it feel really active and alive. And you'll see that sort of a theme throughout how we chose to design the building, between the new trails that will eventually come along the river, the trails through the rear of the site, and then some of the interior decisions that we made about activity space and amenities. We tried to make the space very active for our residents. They're going to be seniors. Health will be closely tied to activity. And so we thought that theme was important to bring throughout the building. So if you want to go to the next slide, Rebecca, here's some elevations. You know, we can go into details on any of them. You can see the design idea was to use dormers to bring down the scale a bit. And at the ends, we strategically placed more colonial design that mimics a single-family house, so that when you're coming down Lincoln Street or Mayberry, it gives off an image more of a single-family nature, and the scale of the building is trying to be hidden towards the rear behind those. So if you want to go to the next one, Rebecca, I think it's just more of the same. This one does show a little bit better. There's a slight grade change to the rear of the building on the southern side. And there is a overhead door for trash that's hidden from the rest of the neighborhood. You won't be able to see that from Lincoln or Mayberry. There's going to be another exit out that door for residents that come down and might use laundry, or we're going to have a bicycle room down, which you'll see in the next slide. They can take their bikes right out at grade at the rear, and they're not tracking dirt in or anything like that through the upper parts of the building. So if you want to go to the next slide. Here's the basement, just programmatically. There's on-site laundry, an indoor trash room, so there won't be any outdoor trash. We have what we're proposing now is most likely to be a bike room, just because of the close proximity to downtown. We have extra storage down there, and then our mechanical and sprinkler rooms are all hidden down there. There's no residence on that side, and it only goes for a small portion of the building footprint. And if you go to the next slide. So this is the ground floor. You'll see again that main entrance with the beautiful canopy and big sort of porch sitting area. Inside there will be a mail package room, mailboxes. There's a telemedicine room, which you'll see is the resident health community center. After the pandemic, there's a space now that residents could go and have virtual meetings with healthcare providers. We also have an on-site management office, so property managers could meet with tenants and be on site to do whatever work they need to do and not have to do it remotely. There's also a large community room of about 1,000 square feet, and then we have a sprinkling of one-bedroom apartments. They're all one-bedroom. They're all roughly the same size, except for at the ends, where those bump outs for the colonial-shaped building pieces are just a little bit bigger, about 20 square feet bigger. And if you want to go to the next slide, these are the two upper floors. On one of the two, likely the top floor, we're going to have a small fitness room, so low-impact machines, weights, yoga mats, things like that, to try to give the residents a good quality of life and keep them active and healthy. And I think that might be the last slide, Rebecca, but feel free to go to the next one. And this is just up above. It's the same exact layout, except for one of them will be janitor, closet, and storage, that kind of thing, back of the house. But if you have any questions, we're happy to ask it. We also have the architect on Zoom call. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Staff comments?
In your packet, you can see that the staff have provided the applicant with comments related to the site plan. I don't think we have much to add at this time, and we're just looking for planning board's comments to add into this.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Oh, I just want to just add one more thing. Where this is an intrinsic part of the River Meadow development, that those two projects now will be sort of moving in tandem, and we will have an approval of the overall project in advance of this project receiving its final approval.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing in person. Anyone with comments or questions, please come to the microphone to my right and state your name, the address, and the question or comment you may have.
My name is Justina Magno, and I reside at 40 Emery Street. I wanted to clear up something from the last meeting. I wasn't able to attend. I did see it through Zoom. But some of the neighbors, along with me, are concerned about this all the different phases of the development. And I just wanted to clarify that someone had commented about one of the things that we are frustrated at is that the number of units keep on going up. And whoever spoke said that they've never gone up. But back on April 8th, when we had a meeting, we were told, and I have my notes right here, that there would be 275 buildings. They broke them all down. It basically came to 316 individual units. And now we're up to 358. So I just wanted for the record to say, yes, it has gone up every single time that there's a planning board meeting. I have attended these, and I've noticed that you guys are all very considerate about the amount of parking. This looks like they're all consolidated into one, and I know you guys are concerned about not having so much of a paved area, and I hope you take that into consideration on this site. I don't know exactly where the public can access those trails in the river, and I would like clarification on where they can. Also, where are people going to park to be able to use those public trails and to access the river? One of the other items on the agenda, someone had talked about how high the building was going to be. I'm very interested to see, this is a 3-story, and I'd like to know the height of this in relation to the area houses that are around. And then someone had asked during the Zoom meeting that we had with them, they gave us 800 feet for Nicholas Way, but someone had asked how long this driveway is, and they didn't have the number, and if that could be discussed tonight. And then about the trees, Tyler was to say that, I'm not a fan of pine trees, I'll just say, but the whole line of them, it's a very interesting when you see them in person. And he said that you guys were going to replace trees, and I understand that. But how long are these trees going to take to mature? That we're going to have to see this until they do hide the parking lot and the building. And then I was just curious as to if anybody who is developing this property or any of you guys actually decided, hey, we have a river warning flood on Sunday. If you guys ever visited the area Sunday afternoon to see, I mean, in theory, and we can do all our computer stuff, but to actually visit it while we're in a flood warning, if I'm not mistaken, it was supposed to cross at 20 feet. In the shoreland, I know it's been pushed back because of the dam, but you know, nature has a way of surprising all of us. I walked through there, and I was quite amazed at how wet the property actually was. So those are my questions and my comments.
Thank you. Someone else?
Yeah, hi, Mike Lynch, 159 Lincoln Street. First off, I've got to say, guys, I think what you're doing is really pretty good. I was really worried. I've still got concerns, but I'm amazed at some of the things you actually did think about. And you have a landscape architect, you know, for the other project. We've been asking for this every meeting. Congratulations, this is good. You're going to keep, if I understand this, and if you can go back to the very first slide, the overview. Okay, here. So, I don't know if this will work. Yes, hot Diggity dog, this is great. I believe these are the pine trees here. Your line here kind of shows, there's actually the full line of pine trees. There's a space, and then there's 3 more. And I'm just trying to figure out where the actual drive's going. This is a nit. If the 3 pine trees, I'm not sure whether they'll go in or still there. So that's part of it. And you may not know this. This is literally, I live across the road. I walk out there. I know trees, which is scary. And then the other thing is right in here in this area. Okay, there's another big stand of pines. That looks like it's not in your property. You guys may not have any say over it, but you've been talking about surrounding the whole area, and these trees again are really nice buffers in here. I don't know if you can tell if they're actually going to remain or not. I would hope they can. It's all part of the stream that's running along here. Okay. Similar question to Jessica, the trees at maturity. I just wanted to know a little bit more. Gee, I wish trees grew a lot faster, but I know they don't. So the other question along with the landscape is during our neighborhood meeting, one of the things that totally amazed me was here along the pine trees. I think it was you, Jason? No, Caleb. Caleb mentioned that, yes, they actually realized those are really old pine trees, and old pine trees don't always stay up. And I think you guys talked about you were actually going to try and put other trees in that same area, but I didn't hear you mention it. So I was just trying to figure out, did I understand that correctly, and what kind of trees were they? Okay, and the last question, and I don't think you can answer this, but it's got to do with this area right here, all right? And that's when you're coming down Lincoln. So this is what you're going to be looking towards your buildings right in here. And, as you said, you're going to try and screen it. But what nobody really knows is, because this is going to be phase 2, 3, 4, or God only knows how many, what's going to end up in here. Originally, this was going to be a horseshoe going back this way with duplexes. That got changed to put the Westbrook housing in, and it's unclear what this is going to be here. So when you're talking about coming down and what it's going to look like, even though you're going to do as good a job as you can, for all we know, there's going to be a whole bunch of 12-unit condos going in here that are going to be what's in front of everything. So I know you can't answer it. I'm just trying to think, what's this all going to look like? What you may want to actually try and do, because there's some pines here, which if they can keep them, great, and I think you can, but maybe you put like a berm here, a 10-foot high berm with a bunch of arborvitaes along here. At least then, if you do go and put big buildings in this area, you've got some sort of a buffer. But again, then you would need a landscape architect. But again, I'm always asking for that. If I didn't have a mask on, you'd see a smile. All right, guys, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Those who are viewing this on Zoom, if you have a question or a comment, please press *9 so we know that you have a comment or a question to ask.
No comments.
Okay. I close this public comment section. Okay. Before I start this, Jen, I think I need to ask for clarity. I believe some of the questions that were asked has to do with the global project, but few had to do with the specific project that we're discussing tonight. All the questions were excellent, all the questions were awesome, all the questions should be answered. However, I don't believe some of them should be asked to Westbrook Housing because they have no relevance to them to even ask. And if they would, it'd be a guess, it would not be. Okay, and I really don't want to mix the two together, but I fully understand how it's going to be the global project going to move in tandem. So I'm going to need your guidance to make sure that we ask questions to Westbrook Housing that is only associated with this particular part of the project. Am I off skew or am I on skew?
Nope, you are completely on point. What I can do is I can speak to those points that would be on the global project, just to say that the applicant is not going to be able to answer those tonight, but if anybody would like to come into our office, we can go through the global project to provide more information. So on items of access to the trails or where the public trails are going to be, those are items that are to the global project. So that would be something, if you'd like to come into our office, we'd be more than happy to show you the overarching project. As far as the flood zone and the concern of wetland areas, this project is well upland of those areas on the site, and we are well aware of where those flood zones are. In relationship to what is happening on the other phases that are outside of the red line that is shown on the screen, those will be subsequent site plans that will come forward at a later date, and each one of those projects will be expected to come forward with their site plans and landscaping and all of those elements that would be required of any project. So the project that we are reviewing tonight is specific to inside of the lines of the lot that would be served off of Nicholas Lane. Yes, thank you. So just to clarify that, and so again, the tree buffer that is currently on the site that is on another phase of the project, that is going to be dealt with on a subsequent review as well. So if we wanted to continue from those points, we can ask the applicant for those things that are specific to the project.
Okay, so I'm going to go randomly, but just because, okay. Hard name. Peter, would you come up, please? I think one of the questions that were asked, which has relevance to this particular part of this project, is the height and so I use the word maturity of the trees that you plan on using.
The mature height, these are big trees. These trees get quite large, and that was intentional for all the current concerns that have been expressed. We want it to feel like it's not sticking out like a sore thumb, even though it's a really nice building. On the right-hand side of the plan, those 5 trees there, those are pin oaks. And if you want to see what those look like, on the end of Brown Street, on the Dana Warp side, if you're approaching the Dana Warp Mill, that last block, those are pin oaks, and they're spaced approximately at this distance from one another. They're, I'm guessing, 100 feet tall. They're quite large. The tulip trees on the south side of the parking lot, that's actually a mix of tulip and American elm. And you can probably all, sorry, I was getting away from the microphone. Can you hear me okay? You can envision the old American elm from way back. These are disease resistant. They too get 100 feet. Tulip trees are tallest trees in New England, I'm told. They get very large. So where we have space, that's where we're using those very large trees. In the island as well, as I mentioned, there's a mixture of tulip trees, red maple, and ginkgo. So where we have the space, we're really trying to green it up, providing shade on that parking lot, shade to the building. Quality of life is really important. We think we can get those trees to affect the quality of life within the building.
Okay, I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Now we know what the end result of the growth is
Yep.
going to be. What size are you planning to plant them? Is it going to be a seedling?
No.
Or is it
Yeah.
going to be...
Great question. They'll be 2-inch caliper, which is, depending on the tree, that can be 10 feet high, 8 to 10 feet high at planting. It's a pretty nice size. And these are all rapid growers. So there will be, I mean, we all want it to be instant. I mean, that's the frustration with landscape. You really do have to have patience. But there will be an immediate impact because of the quantity of trees, and it will just exponentially over time fill in. I would say in, 10, 15 years, I don't know what to say. They'll be quite high and doing a really good job at making the building feel settled and beautiful.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Caleb, is your architect here?
Barry is available by phone. I believe he's calling in.
Okay. Because the other question was, which I think is pertinent to this subject, and jump in if I'm not, is the height of the building. I think that's important in this specific case. Can we find out the height of the building and how the landscaping or the keeping of the trees there is going to affect the look of that building?
Yes, I believe the building is 35 feet in height. And we're showing that, yeah, it'll be shown on the elevations, but more importantly too on the space and bulk table that's on our site plan. And I believe that's the standard that was set in the overlay zone, or the RJA one, I believe to say.
Okay. And Tyler, I won't leave you out. Can you come up to the microphone, please?
And just to add on to that, the mature pines there, I think are, and Peter might know better, but are already 60 feet or something along that nature. So we're trying to plant trees that ultimately get 40 feet plus. That was part of the design intent, with some of these mature trees bringing the outer edges of the building to blend in with those existing mature trees that are already quite high.
Okay. Peter, do you agree? Awesome. The parking lots, I'm going to say 3. I know it's 1, but the 3 parking lots. The person who asked this said it was going to be a large parking lot. I want you to address that, and I want Jen to address that. Okay, so you're up first.
Sure. So one of the things we did when we first took a look at the site was, and I think we've talked about a decent bit tonight, was really try to see where this all fits. We're trying to get people, because of the senior building, as accessible to that main door as we can. We're also trying to limit disturbance to any of the mature trees. And in doing so, it didn't leave us with too many areas of where you would naturally put parking. That's where it ended up on this corner. And able to segment the site in a way that allows for less impervious area than otherwise might be there, while also not disturbing those existing mature trees. We are doing a slightly lower parking ratio, which I think is appropriate for the type of users that we're going to hear in senior residents, especially low-income residents. We have a lot of people that end up needing this type of housing because they may have a disability, may no longer drive anymore, take the ride van service, comes to the door. We typically see parking ratios for our type of buildings that are low income, restricted, and senior, somewhere in the neighborhood of a parking ratio per unit at 0.75, 0.80, something around that. So what we've done here is we've essentially programmed in a 1-to-1 parking ratio, plus a handful of others that just sort of fit naturally based on the contours that were already going to be there once you get to 1-to-1, which allow for some guest parking, visitors, maybe there's some programs we run for the residents, visiting nurses, other different programs we tend to run for our residents as sort of amenities. And this is what we thought was appropriate in terms of serve the needs of the residents. It's actually less than what we would otherwise need to do, so the parking from that standpoint has been reduced. We also didn't want to drive all the way around the building. There's some grade changes, but it's also not necessary in our eyes. We can get the fire safety access off the rear, and so to us, it's also important to not have too much paving when we can avoid it, so we have the reinforced grass area for the fire lane off the rear of the building. So to the naked eye, it will feel like grass, but it's reinforced underneath about 6 or 8 inches of dirt with crushed stone and other things that would stop a fire truck from sinking into the mud if they were ever in an unfortunate position to come out and service the building. So we've been trying to look at multiple ways to try to limit any impervious surface, but also make sure the building is served right, but protect the existing landscape that's there right now.
Thank you, Ted.
Yep.
Jen, can you
Yes.
jump in on this?
Yep. The efficiency of how that they are laying out this site is trying again to keep paving to a minimum. And one of the elements that the applicant will be requesting of the city is a waiver of the parking standard for a traditional unit with a 1-bedroom, a distinct 1-bedroom off of the main unit. It's a 1.5 spaces per unit requirement. The applicant is requiring requesting rather a 1 space per unit requirement, and staff is supportive of that we are reducing the amount of necessary parking that they're creating on this site because the need of this particular type of residential use does not require that higher level of parking. So the applicant is being very sensitive to that. We respect that and we support reducing the parking to what is necessary to have the site function.
Thank you. I'm going to go in my own world. I'm going to encourage both young people who ask questions and invite them at any time when they're available to see Jen and Becca. In my opinion, and this is only my opinion, I think they are the 2 most comprehensive planners that I've ever worked with. I've worked with about 9. And they can explain it, even I can understand, which should scare anyone. So don't be afraid to call them, to email them, and they will meet with you, and they'll help guide you through this process. And I want to take time to thank both of you for, it takes a caring person to come forward, take their time off their schedule to come and ask questions. The more questions you ask, the better the project is. The better the project is, the better the city is. And I happen to love this city. So I want to thank you ahead of time, and in the future, don't be afraid to ask questions, because it's extremely important. Okay? Did I miss any questions? Hey, excuse me, I'm talking to the planner.
Yes, so one of the questions was the length of the driveway. If you have an estimate of what you could provide for a length of the driveway, and also Mr. Lynch had wanted clarification on the location of the driveway in proximity to the existing tree line.
Yes, and I had written down quite a bit of the questions as well, so I'm going to try to cross them off as best I can as we had discussed some of them. But to answer the question regarding the length of the drive, I had pulled a measurement and we're about 800 feet from the driveway entrance at Nicholas Lane, and that includes wrapping all the way around to the very southerly drive aisle and then towards the rear, right where the mouse is there. Yeah, so that's that distance right there that Rebecca's mouse has just traveled is about 800 feet. See. So I know we talked about a couple other things, and I apologize. I'm just trying to read through some of my notes here with my scribbling on the page here. But there were a couple other questions, just access to the river and some of those pieces I know we touched on that are kind of more relevant to the overall subdivision. But I think just important for us to note, what we're really trying to provide here in this building and providing, our tenants here and be good neighbors as well, and providing a good site that has good landscaping, good buffering, but also has some good visibility for what we think is a very, very good looking building here. And providing a lot of space within the parking area. I'll add on to some of Tyler's comments as well of really feeling the need to reduce that amount of pavement that we have there and providing more than typical space within a lot of those interior drive aisle islands, and then against the building as well. I think it'll really provide, a sense of closeness and when you're up against the building here as well, and then also provide a little bit of privacy and bring back that kind of natural feel to the site. Was there anything else that I think I had missed here? I'm trying to read through as well.
Caleb, can you just highlight the location of the driveway into the site versus where the existing pine line is? Because I think Mike just wanted clarification that the driveway was not going to go through there.
Correct. Yes, where our driveway is shown there, and you can see that's quite a large opening there. If you actually flip back down to Peter's landscape plan, what I'll note is on that plan there, there is one tree. So what you'll see is that in that top side, you have the existing row of pines, and then you'll see 1, 2, 3 existing pines that are kind of shown in black and white with somewhat of kind of a star coming out of them. And then right after the third pine tree, there's a smaller green tree there, and that is that smaller opening that Mike was discussing there. And so we're going to stay well clear of that. And we're really trying to provide as much distance as we really can to try and not disturb the area around those trees.
And the question of supplemental trees in the tree line, is that what is being proposed, or is just the tree line what is going to be?
So in that third space there, and I'll let Peter speak a little bit more if you'd like to, Peter. But I was just pointing out that one tree there, and Peter can speak a little bit more to that piece.
That one tree that Caleb pointed to, that there is a gap there. Maybe there was a pine there at one time, but that's a pine to fill in that gap. In addition, the circles that are in that area just to the north of those trees, that's a mixture of viburnum. They're not trees, they're tall shrubs. The idea being there, we want it to feel natural and get some screening down at the ground level. I know it's really hard to say, but I feel like those pine trees still have many decades of life in them. And on the rest of the driveway, on the driveway in, we didn't do pines there. We did American elm and tulip tree with some spruce rather than pine. The smaller circles there, are white spruce, I believe.
Jen?
Because the topic was brought up, and actually we did get an email from a resident about this particular topic, I figured it was important just to kind of go through this and make sure that people were clear on what this project is and what this project is not. So the number of units that the overarching project is moving forward with, during the review process of the ordinance, the engineering of the site had not been completed. So understanding the soils and the high-intensity soil survey that's necessary to be able to make the determination on the number of units had not been done at that time. There was an estimate of somewhere in the 275 to 300 range about units, but the final number had not been determined because final engineering had not been completed. During the current master planning process in phase 1, we now have final engineering numbers on what the soils are and what the site can bear. So what we have for a total project for the limits of what is the River Meadow Golf Course is 358 units. Of the 358 units, 60 of those units are part of this project. So there was concern from some residents. They thought that the 60-unit project was in addition to what the River Meadow project was proposing. The 60 units is inclusive of that, as well as the subdivision lots that you have seen as part of phase 1 and the condo units. So I just want to provide that information and clarification, because I know that once I did provide that explanation to the resident, that they felt comfortable now with where the project was going.
Thank you. Board comments. Anyone has any comments? Questions? Yes, Karen.
Thank you. I just want to say I think it looks fantastic. I know Westbrook is in dire need of senior housing. I live near senior housing, and it's, I don't notice an inflow in parking. The 1 unit per person might be somewhat challenging. I know my grandmother lives in senior housing in South Portland, and I know when I go there, it's very hard to find visitor parking. But I think overall, the layout, the landscaping, it looks fabulous.
Thank you, Karen. Someone else with a question? Larry, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment also on the building. I definitely like the design. Looking up from Mayberry or from Lincoln straight out, I didn't notice until you pointed it out with the gable end. It's going to look like a house. You're not going to see most of it, most of the building right up front from the road. Once you get into development, I can see how it's going, especially with the pine trees. Thank you for saving those. Thank you for the extra trees you're putting in for the landscaping. I think it's going to be good. Westbrook Housing, again, to speak with Karen, they do a great job with all their landscaping. Their grasses are always looking good in all the properties that they own in the city of Westbrook. So I feel that they're going to do a well-maintained job as well, and keep planting more trees, and we're going to keep on telling you to plant more trees as well. And but I do like the way the building's laid out. I do have one comment on the trash removal. I know we have the trash in the basement. Is it going to be a dumpster? Is it going to be picked up once a week? Is it going to be picked up as needed? How many trash units are going to be needed to pick it up? So forth.
Sure, I can wait till the end if you've got more comments, but I figured I'd stay.
No, that's good. Thanks.
Okay. But thank you for the kind words. We put a lot of effort into that design and thought of us, and we're really happy with what Peter's been able to bring to the team with the landscape design, so we appreciate the feedback. The way we operate our trash rooms for senior properties, obviously we want them inside for seniors so they're not out walking in the snow when it's slippery. There are individual tote bins. I forget the gallon size, but they're almost the size of this podium, roughly. And it's a mix of recycling and trash. They'll get picked up once or twice a week. And what we've typically done is we have almost like a garage door, but it's insulated. And then the room is typically insulated, almost like it's outside, to keep the hot air and cold air out, all that. And so the truck will drive up, and that's where we pulled that. There's a little bit of paving that turns the corner at the basement, so the trash truck can load from behind there, right in that bottom left corner of the building. That's where the basement's located. And so there's a separate door right off that end. And to limit disruption to the residents, to limit visibility from the neighborhood, everything will be collected off there, off the big opening garage door. It's probably about that wide once it's built, big enough to easily move bins in and out without beating up the edges of the doorway. And so it's all located inside, and the trash truck typically for a building this size, and the size of that trash room, hopefully only comes once or twice a week.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Somebody else? Jason?
I'd just like to make a couple comments, echo the others. Excellent design. The building looks fantastic. And Peter's landscape design, spot on. You nailed that one. And I did have some questions, but they were all asked by Jessica and Mike. So thank you for showing up, and thank you for asking excellent questions. So this looks like a great project. Thank you.
Another board member? Nancy?
Thank you for your presentation tonight. The building is really nicely designed, so thank you for that. And the architecture of the landscaping, also wonderful. It's great that you have an architect for the landscaping on board. A few things that I was considering as I was watching your project or your presentation is, I guess maybe it's just because it's autumn right now, but I was thinking of all of those trees, and I wondered if you'd considered the production of the fall colors when you chose your trees. That was something that came to mind for me, because that's a beautiful opportunity to be able to showcase, incredible fall colors. Another thing that came to mind to me, maybe not just for this project, but for all the projects, is just an eye towards pollinators, any kind of flora that brings pollinators. That would be, I'd like to see more of that in the community overall. With this having 60 units, the outdoor space for people that would live there, because it's going to be people with disabilities, people that are older. 60 units, it seems that the opportunity to have outdoor, you mentioned a few outdoor seating areas, as much as you could offer, I think would be really good, because I think one of the things we learned during COVID, how important it is to be able to get outside, get fresh air. So offering as much of that as possible. And I'll be really curious about the lighting over there, because you've done such a great job with the architecture and with the trees, and I'm wondering what the lighting plan will be to fit into all the wonderful work you've already done. And then finally, in terms of the scale, I mean, I think of the Dana Warp Mill over there and the river lofts, and those are really big buildings on that side of the river, and it seems to me like it's fitting. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. John?
Through you to the planner, so with respect to the waiver for parking, is the idea that being senior housing, we're going to have residents who don't have vehicles, therefore they wouldn't be needed? I used to live next to a senior living, and I can tell you weekends and holidays it was packed, when everyone comes to visit. So if my only concern with that would be visitor parking. Where will the visitors park? So I guess, is the applicant going to be providing more documentation to you, or have they already, and that's why the city's already supporting the waiver?
So in other applications, they have come to us with that documentation of the 0.75 to 0.8 ratio, which is where we were feeling comfortable on the one-to-one. We can ask the applicant to provide that again with our next packet, so that we can document how that they have accomplished that in their other facilities.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And other than that, I really like the design. I think the 3D projection of what it's going to look like, the elevation just doesn't do it justice until you really show what it's going to look like. And that's great, so I'm really in favor of it so far. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We have one member on Zoom. Ed, do you have any comments?
Not on this item, but I do have something to bring to the board.
I'm sorry, Ed, could you repeat that?
Sure. I don't have any comments on this project, but I do have some comments to make to the board after we're done with this one.
Thank you very much, Ed. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Any other comments, Jen?
So there was a few comments that Nancy had made that the landscape architect might be able to address or be able to follow up.
Yeah, thank you for those questions. Absolutely, fall color. Yeah, the pin oaks have that sort of varied fall color. They're not just strictly one color. They're really gorgeous, and they hold on to their leaves much longer than most. So the pin oaks are going to have some really interesting color. Red maple, is one of the most vibrant of our native trees for fall color, and we have quite a few of those. And then there's a mixture of the other trees all have sort of varying shades of red and yellow, and it should be a really nice blend. You asked about pollinators. So we're calling for all the disturbed areas to be seeded with a conservation mix, which includes wildflowers and pollinator-loving plants. So they should attract birds and insects and et cetera. A lot of them have milkweed in it, so we'll make sure that the seed mix has milkweed, which is monarch butterfly, habitat. You asked about seeding as well. We're excited especially about the trail along the Little Creek. We've cited, there are several rectangles, they're black rectangles along that path. If you go to the landscape plan there, the black dotted line is the stone dust path. And along that, you'll see some scattered rectangular shapes, and those indicate benches. That's a really lovely area down in there. That path sort of weaves through that existing stand of pine. And we think that'll be a really nice place. That's sort of on the opposite end of that. In the front of the building, we have a generous concrete patio or plaza. It's not quite a plaza. It's not that large, but it's spacious. And that circular niche that you see there is a sitting area. So we'll tuck a bench in there. Tyler mentioned the seat wall. So I think we're going to have a lot of places for people to perch. Underneath the building canopy as well, we have several benches. And lighting, we have along that the concrete path that I just described. We have lighting along there, as well as in the back of the building. We have smaller bollard lights for that path out the back side of the building. I think you had another question, but I'm not recalling that. Good.
Thank you. It sounds lovely.
Okay. Jen, did you want to wrap it up? Do you have anything else to say?
I think I've talked enough.
Okay. Does everyone speak to us after me, or?
Okay. Once the application's done, he wants to speak to the board. So just we'll end the application and go to it.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Timeline. Caleb, you're up. What do you perceive in your magic globe?
Yes, timelines. As I had mentioned, we're tied to the overall permitting for phase one of the subdivision. So once that piece goes through, we'll look to be right behind them. And currently we'll be requiring state permitting as well. So that'll be much of our work here this winter, but we'll hope to keep up with you and in hopes of looking for approvals here come next springtime.
Okay. If you can get from our secretary the contact numbers and names of these two individuals, and make sure that they are informed as much as you can. Okay? They're going to be my field experts.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Let's wrap this up, and you're free to go.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
And Ed, you said you wanted to speak to us?
Ed, did you have a comment you wanted to make to the board?
Yes. I would suggest to the board that we request a traffic study of the whole city, because if you take a look at the although you don't count one car for every unit, it does need looking at. Thank you.
Jen, can you research that?
We'll look into that.
Awesome. I would like to move this forward. Is there someone who would like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by John, seconded by,
Second.
Karen. Motion moved by John, seconded by Karen. Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Lori McWilliams?
Yes.
Nancy Lippert-Capes?
Yes.
Ed Reedman?
Yes.
Rainey Daniel?
Yes. This meeting is officially adjourned. Let's go see who won the election.
Right.